being a K-pop idol is definitely not for anyone. There's an artist named Holland in Korea. He's actually one of the
Yes.
first Korean artists that debuted in Korea and came out.
For all film related interviews, reviews, and content, please like and subscribe to Pooja Talwar. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Instagram.
Hi.
Hi, Dabit. Nice to meet you. And let me tell you, I really admire you for the fact that you have charted your own path. And it's not easy for everyone who sets out in this very competitive world of music. So many congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I heard Panic, and somewhere I think it just resonates with me because I think we are all in panic mode. And
Yeah.
also, so where did that come from? Because I know we are always panicking about something or the other, and it's that unknown fear because panic is basically anxiety. And so, did that come from your own experiences? And what was the message that you were trying to let out? Because this is a very panic-stricken time that we're all living in.
Yeah. So I think Panic was, yeah, I think it basically, that was a little bit more hyper-focused on, I'll just say the past year of my life has been a very big turn in my, not only my life, but also in my career as well. And, you know, it's like one by one, it just felt like the curtains had been lifted. The curtains that I had been like hiding from, and where I've always put out such like a curated version of myself out there, not only to my fans, but also to the people around me as well. And I think once those curtains started lifting one by one, and once, you know, I started to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable in my skin, I started to think, you know, what next? You know, like I've you know, come this far, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after. And I had just come out of, you know, if you remember a few years back, we had the whole Corona thing. During Corona, I had to take like a good 2-year hiatus. All my tours got canceled, and basically I just kind of rotted away at home, like a lot of other people probably did as well during that time. And yeah, it hit me really hard, and I had not written any music during that time. And yeah, and after that, after Corona ended, that's when, you know, I had my big breakup with my ex, and then of 8 years. And then I was just like, I have nothing left in my life. And I had to really start digging personally in my life to see who I was, what I wanted to do. And I think that's what led me to the songs that I've released. So I actually wrote Habit first.
Yes, I heard that.
So
It's
Habit
very
was the
poignant.
first, right. That was the first song that I wrote 2 weeks after breaking up, because that was not meant to actually go out into the world at that point. I just needed something kind of, some kind of outlet.
Was it cathartic? Was it cathartic? You know, because you've laid yourself bare. Let me say that you've just put yourself out there, which many artists don't do. But I think your art found expression through the turbulence you were going through.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, when I first wrote it, I didn't think that it was going to be for an audience, but it was going to be more for myself. And it was for me to start getting back into like the writing mode. And because that was all I knew how to do. That was the only skill set that I felt I'd somewhat polished over the years. And I was like, okay, might as well try to start writing a song, not for the sake of selling myself, but, you know, and selling a curated version of myself, writing something that I think everyone will like, but let's just try writing something for myself
Absolutely.
and myself alone. And I wrote that, and it was on the back shelf for about like 14 months. I went on a reality show in between. I released Panic in between, and I've come full circle. And basically, you know, 14 months later, I finally released Habit. So yeah, it's definitely been a crazy journey, but yeah, it was a very important part of my growth as a person and an artist as well.
Awesome, awesome. And also the fact that I mean, you did spend your years training in the K-pop industry, but went ahead as an independent musician. What was it when you realized that I need to take my own path and maybe I don't want to be part of this hyper competitive world, of K-pop? What was the reason that you decided to go solo?
This is not at any way like I'm not trying to put down anyone who goes into this industry. It's for a very specific niche group of people. Like being a K-pop idol is definitely not for anyone. And if anything, if you want to do music, if you want to be a singer, if you want to be a songwriter, chances are being a K-pop idol might not be the best route for you. And I say this coming from personal experience because, when you are in a company, you are essentially kind of having to mold to their concepts and their vision for you and the group. And I think what that did for me was it actually started to chip away at my color instead of enhance my color as an artist. And I went into the company feeling very sure about myself, but then having trained there for a year, after a year, I had lost so much of my self-identity as an artist that I started to second doubt my own talent. Like they're always like, blend, blend, blend. No, you're sticking out too much. Blend, blend, blend. And I tried so hard to blend that I ended up taking away all of the parts that made me unique. And I think that's when I found out that a company, especially being in an idol company, was not the right environment for me to grow and thrive.
Absolutely. But now with, K-pop being mainstream, do you think it also gives that kind of an impetus to independent musicians, or do you think the independent musicians will always have their own journey to chart?
I think the great thing about K-pop in general is that it became very mainstream through the internet.
Yes.
It was YouTube, it was Twitter, it was mostly the online community that really pushed K-pop really hard. And I think because of that, it's almost not always exclusive to the big companies. I think people are interested in the music scene in K-pop in general. So I think that in itself, I think even for me, when I went into a company, the mindset was, I knew somewhat of what the environment was, but I was like, okay, if I'm able to survive and debut, then they'll be able to push me more through whatever curated image that they have. And then once I'm free and once I'm finished with that contract, I can start charting my own path with the fan base that I've accrued through being in a company. So that was like the, like the business logic in my head, but it's just so much harder than you would think. I could not survive it. And the people who do, you should have massive respect for them because they go through a lot and they really have to tough things out. But being a very sensitive singer-songwriter who takes everything very personally, it was not easy. But I think I've definitely gotten a lot of opportunities through the K-pop name in general, even though I was completely 100% independent. So I think what you said is right. We definitely do benefit off of the whole K-pop thing.
Absolutely. But also the fact that, as you said, you're a sensitive artist, but who through his music is articulating what he's feeling, which I feel a lot of artists, they would want to, but they fear that they should not because they put up this very strong persona. So I just hope everyone takes a cue from you because we are curating selves of ourselves that is actually not a real version. So, I mean.
Yeah, I think you have to, it's difficult. And it's a songwriter's journey, basically. And I remember specifically, even in 2015, when I released Up and Down, and this is one of like my happiest songs. It's about falling in love and like everything, and like it describes the feeling of falling in love. The way I started that song, it started as a depressing song. And I edited, oh, too depressing. Edited, and then eventually started turning into a complete washed out, very I don't want to say generic, but it ended up being a typical love song. And that's something, back then I had trouble expressing. I was scared. What are people going to think if I look
Yeah.
too depressed or too sad? They're going to start thinking this and that and that. And then they're going to start being like, oh my gosh, is he even straight? And then I started going because I had been out of the closet and I just had all of these fears that were weighing me down. And yeah, for me, it took a breakdown for me to kind of knock down that wall. But after
Awesome.
that, it's all free game now, and I feel so much lighter, and I feel like I can really do so much more with my music, and I'm actually excited to start writing music again.
I have just one word to say: respect. I mean, honestly,
Thank
for
you.
coming out, for uh, basically embracing your own individuality, and hats off. And also, another interesting fact about you is you're a Korean American. So you have two identities. Was there ever a
Yes.
struggle that, sometimes if you're in Korea, you're not Korean enough. You're in America, but you're not
Yeah.
American enough. So how did you
Yeah.
bridge these two identities? Because you have the best of both the worlds.
Yeah, I still feel that way a lot of the times. But yeah, I think it's difficult. And even now, I've been living in Korea almost exclusively for the past 14 years. I moved here in 2010. And even to this day, I still feel that disconnect with when I'm in a group of Korean people. Like when I'm one-on-one, I'm completely fine. Two-on-one, I'm usually fine. But when it's a group, like, and they start, talking about more cultural things that I am not able to relate because I didn't live there my whole entire life. I still feel that. And uh, it's something you just have to kind of accept and get over. But at the same time, it comes with its benefits as well. I feel like you are able to see the world in a much more neutral state.
Yeah.
And I think that's a strength, if anything. So I think it comes with its yeah, it's difficult, but it also has its perks. So I think you just have to keep that in mind while you navigate, wherever you're living, America or Korea or whatever two countries that you're caught in between, that, you are in somewhat you have a lens that other people can't see through. So I think that's very important, especially as a songwriter.
Awesome. Who has been your biggest influence, if I may ask? Your biggest influence, since you are best of both the worlds.
Ooh, biggest influence. What do you mean influence? Like
Musically,
musically or
musically, someone you admire, whose
uh
craft you've always admired.
I think I took different things from different artists. Back when I was in high school, middle school, I would listen to a artist and I would love what they were doing, and I would go through their entire catalog. I would buy every single album because I was obsessed with the person, not necessarily their music.
Yeah.
It was a big element of it, but I was obsessed with the person. But as I've grown older and I started writing more songs, I started looking at works individually and what artists were doing with their music. And in that sense, I think different artists had a lot of different impacts on me. For instance, there's an artist named Holland in Korea. He's actually one of the
Yes.
first Korean artists that debuted in Korea and came out unapologetically and
Yeah.
somewhat made a big name for himself. And I looked at that, and in the beginning, I was like, oh man, I was almost worried for how he was gonna do, because like no one had really done this before. But I saw his growth, and then in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe I could do something like this too. Troye Sivan did the same thing. Sam Smith. Like, I feel like people who come from a similar background as me, who are queer, hadn't come out, but found courage and found an outlet and a group of people that were willing to accept them unapologetically. Seeing their journey really helped give me the courage to come out and start the journey of my own.
Awesome. So very well said. And I personally feel it actually should not matter to the world what one is. It's your art that's talking.
Right.
But I'm sure one day if we have artists like you are just going to pave the way for others to embrace themselves, and for the rest also to embrace them for who they are, because that's the individuality. Also, K-dramas, I mean, are you like the actor in you, is he like omnipresent, or is it just like one facet to your multi personality?
I think I always loved acting, and I think it's somewhat connected to music as well. Like, I always like to
Hmm.
think of music as something that's a little bit more personal that you put into art and you show a bit more of yourself through that art. Whereas acting, you get to take your emotions and kind of remold it into a completely different character. And that's what I always loved about acting. And I grew up being like a theater kid back in like high school. I did like a lot of musicals. I was like the lead role in like Guys and Dolls for my high school
Wow.
production. I love musicals. And I think that's where it started. So it's always been a core part of me. I guess I just more the singer-songwriter route took off more. So, but I'm always looking for opportunities and I'm always uh, you know, like practicing and working on my craft so that when an opportunity does come, I will take it. But for now, I'm working on the craft that I'm working on is songwriting and being a more genuine person through my songwriting process. But that's not to say that it's not applicable at all in my life because I use it when I perform. I use it uh, when I'm writing music. I feel like it's connected to my life in so many other ways than just being on stage and putting an act or filming something and acting.
And it's amazing because I just see the narratives also in Korea are now becoming more contemporary. They are touching upon other aspects of queer relationships and all, which I think is
Yeah,
very important.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And lastly, I mean, since you are speaking to your Indian audience, are you familiar with Indian movies, Indian music? Do you like Indian food? And can we
Oh
expect you
yeah.
in India anytime soon?
So yeah, I think India was definitely one of the places I've most frequently gone to when I was doing my whole tours and everything. And yeah, like some of my best memories on tour were in India. I fell in love with Indian food there, and when I say fell in love, that's not me just being like, oh yeah, I love Indian food. Like I would go to India to buy spices so that I can bring them back to Korea and cook, like
Wow.
garam masalas or like chicken masalas, uh, coriander
Wow.
powder, like everything, star anise. Like I would get as much as I can without getting caught and try to bring it to Korea so that I could cook Indian food because the Indian food here is a little bit watered down. And when I went to India, I was like, oh my gosh, I realized I never tried Indian food before. It was all just watered down and
Wow.
Koreanized, but it was a complete flavor bomb and it reignited this kind of passion for food as well. So I love going to India and I love that it's so different from any other place I've gone in this world. And I think that's
Awesome.
and I think with that, there's so much to learn. And the people that I've met in India have been some of the most outspoken, intelligent, and the most heartwarming at the same time. So I think, yeah, India has always had a very special place in my heart. And I've always been asking my friend who's been like, organizing a lot of the tours previously, and like, when can I go back? When can I go back? And I even learned a Hindi song. Uh,
Wow. Which
yeah,
one?
yeah, it's from the soundtrack of Diwali. And the funny thing was, I was going through this whole Indian movie kind of phase, and I was trying to look at Diwali, the classic movie, the
Ah,
older one. But then
yeah.
apparently there was a newer version. I didn't know that, and I just clicked it and I watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this song's really good. So there's a song called Janam Janam, and yeah, it's like such a good song, and I've sung that on multiple occasions when I went to India, and yeah, it's just something that I love to do. I think when people in India take part in Korean music, K-pop, the whole K-pop culture here. I feel like the least I can do is, you know, reciprocate that a little, learn some of their language and some of their pop culture references and their songs. And you get so much of a bigger connection when you do something like that. And yeah, when I go on these kind of tours, it means so much more to me than just, you know, like, because clearly I'm not making a huge amount of money as like an independent artist from there, as like big companies are. So, you know, it's about the relationships more so that I make when I go there. So it's like, yeah, I really love going to India, and I can't wait to go back and perform there again. Or just for
And
vacation, honestly.
we
Or
can't wait
just to
to host
eat.
you. And I would be more than happy to send you the homemade garam masala that we make. And it's recipe, you know, just come down from generations of our family. So
Wow.
next time I'm going to send you the garam masala.
Yes,
And
please.
done. And more power to you. May you keep leading the way that you are. And strength to you, power to you, respect. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And
Thank
what
you.
next? Anything exciting coming next?
Well, I basically had been on a roll of writing music, and it used to be where I released one song per year. That was like the max that I could do, like that I can muster up, like monetarily as well, but also just inspirational wise. Like it takes a lot out of you. But nowadays, I've just been writing a lot, and I already have all of the songs that I want to release already written. So I think at the least, this year, everyone will be getting a lot more music from me.
Looking forward to that. More power to you. All the very best. Lovely chatting with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
If you've liked this interview, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram.